Picture this. A soldier steps into a forest. Within seconds, he disappears completely. Not behind a tree, not in camouflage paint. He actually vanishes. His heat signature, gone. His visual outline, erased. Thermal cameras see nothing but empty landscape. 2024, China announces they've cracked the code. A material that doesn't just hide you, it makes you undetectable across multiple wavelengths. They're calling it breakthrough adaptive camouflage. Military analysts are calling it a game changer. But the real question isn't whether it works, it's how far ahead China actually is, and why the Pentagon is suddenly scrambling to catch up. Act 1, the detection problem. Modern warfare has a visibility problem. Everything can be seen. Drones circle overhead 24/7. Satellites photograph every inch of contested territory. Thermal imaging pierces darkness. Traditional camouflage? Useless against this sensor network. That green and brown pattern might fool a human from 500 meters, but it does nothing against infrared detection. Your body radiates heat at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. A thermal camera spots that instantly, whether you're wearing camouflage or not. Night vision technology sees in wavelengths invisible to human eyes. Standard fabric reflects these wavelengths differently than natural terrain. The result? You stand out like a beacon. This is why militaries worldwide have been desperately researching adaptive camouflage for decades. The goal? Create materials that change their properties based on environment, like a chameleon's skin, but engineered. Until recently, this remained theoretical. Lab experiments showed promise but never scaled to practical applications. Then Chinese researchers announced they'd solved it. Act 2, the Chimera breakthrough. The Chimera metamaterial, named after the mythical creature with multiple animal forms. Chinese scientists at Zhejiang University studied 3 creatures: chameleons, glass frogs, and bearded dragons. Each has evolved unique camouflage mechanisms. The team reverse-engineered these biological systems into synthetic materials. The result? A fabric that actively responds to its surroundings. Place it against grass, it adjusts its optical properties to match green wavelengths. Move to desert sand, it shifts to brown tones automatically. Enter water, it adapts again. But here's what makes it revolutionary. It doesn't just change color visible to humans. It manipulates how light interacts with its surface across multiple spectrums. Infrared, near-infrared, thermal signatures, all adjusted simultaneously. Think about what that means tactically. A special operations team could infiltrate through varied terrain, forest to urban to aquatic, without changing equipment. They'd be invisible to visual observation, night vision, and thermal detection. Previous attempts at adaptive camouflage relied on cameras and LED screens. Like Mercedes' invisible car demonstration, cover one side with screens displaying footage from the other side. Clever, but impractical for military use. Too heavy, too power-hungry, too fragile. The Chimera material is different. It's a passive system. The material itself responds to environmental conditions without electronics. No batteries, no cameras, just engineered fabric reacting to ambient conditions. Chinese researchers tested prototypes on drones across air, land, and sea environments. Reported success rate: 95% effectiveness in avoiding detection. Act 3, how it actually works. The science behind adaptive camouflage comes down to controlling light at microscopic scales. Normal fabric reflects light uniformly. Your eye sees this reflected light as a specific color. Metamaterials are engineered structures smaller than the wavelength of light itself. They can bend, absorb, or redirect electromagnetic radiation in ways natural materials cannot. The Chimera material contains microscopic structures that change configuration based on environmental factors: temperature, humidity, background illumination. When these structures shift, they alter how light waves interact with the surface. In bright sunlight against sand, the structures orient to reflect more yellow-brown wavelengths. In shade against vegetation, they reconfigure to absorb more light and reflect green. For thermal camouflage, the material manages heat dissipation. Human bodies radiate infrared energy constantly. Special coatings in the fabric can either disperse this heat gradually, making the signature blend with ambient temperature, or redirect it in ways that break up the recognizable human silhouette. This isn't perfect invisibility like science fiction. It's signature management, making detection significantly harder across multiple sensor types simultaneously. Act 4, the global response. China's announcement didn't happen in a vacuum. Canada's hyperstealth biotechnology has been developing quantum stealth, a material claiming similar properties, since 2019. They've produced prototypes and filed patents, but haven't announced mass production or military adoption. The UK company Invisibility Shield Co. sells consumer versions of optical camouflage, large sheets of lenticular lens arrays that bend light around objects. Effective? Somewhat. You can buy their 6-foot shield on Amazon for under $100. But these are optical illusions for specific viewing angles, not military-grade multispectral camouflage. What makes China's claim significant is scale and integration. They're not selling novelty products. They're reportedly outfitting military units. Reports on Chinese social media, unconfirmed officially, suggest the People's Liberation Army has received its first 1,000 invisibility suits. If true, this represents operational deployment, not laboratory testing. The U.S. response has been characteristically quiet. No public acknowledgement of concern. No dramatic statements. But defense budgets tell a different story. Funding for adaptive camouflage research has increased significantly in recent appropriations. DARPA contracts for metamaterial research have expanded. Multiple defense contractors received grants for advanced signature management systems. This is how military technology races actually unfold, not with press conferences, but with quiet budget reallocations and classified programs. Act 5, beyond military applications. Adaptive camouflage technology won't stay confined to battlefields. The same metamaterials that hide soldiers could revolutionize civilian industries. Architecture. Imagine building facades that adjust opacity based on sunlight, managing heat gain without mechanical systems. Automotive. Self-tinting windows that respond to ambient light automatically. Paint that changes color based on temperature. Fashion. Clothing that shifts patterns or colors based on surroundings. Not for camouflage, for style. Privacy. Materials that block specific wavelengths could shield against unauthorized surveillance or photography. The underlying science, controlling electromagnetic radiation at microscopic scales, has applications far beyond hiding. Solar panels using metamaterial coatings could capture broader wavelengths more efficiently. Thermal management systems in electronics could use adaptive materials to dissipate heat more effectively. Optical computing might leverage metamaterial properties to manipulate light signals. But there's a darker side to civilian proliferation. Act 6, the ethics problem. Invisibility technology in civilian hands creates serious concerns. Crime. A burglar wearing adaptive camouflage could evade security cameras entirely. Law enforcement loses a primary detection tool. Stalking, already a massive problem, becomes exponentially worse when perpetrators can avoid visual detection. Terrorism, attacks become harder to prevent when threats can't be spotted by surveillance networks. Privacy invasion, the same technology that hides you can be weaponized to spy on others undetected. Regulation becomes nearly impossible. How do you enforce laws against something designed to be undetectable? International treaties would need fundamental revisions. Current weapons conventions don't address combatants who can't be visually identified. Rules of engagement break down. How do soldiers distinguish between combatants and civilians when both might be using invisibility technology? The accountability problem is profound. If actions can't be observed, responsibility becomes impossible to assign. Then there's the detection arms race. As invisibility improves, so must detection. New sensor technologies. AI systems trained to spot anomalies that indicate cloaked objects. Ultraviolet detection. Radar signatures, atmospheric disturbance patterns, movement detection based on displaced air. This creates an escalation spiral. Better camouflage demands better sensors. Better sensors demand better camouflage. The end result, astronomical defense spending and a world where trust erodes because you can never be certain what you're actually seeing. The invisible future. China's invisibility breakthrough, real or exaggerated, represents a fundamental shift. We're moving from a world where detection was assumed to one where concealment is engineered. The soldier who vanishes in the forest isn't science fiction anymore. It's materials science. Every major power is now racing to develop adaptive camouflage. Not because it makes armies invincible, it doesn't, but because in modern warfare, even small advantages in detection and concealment can determine outcomes. The question isn't whether this technology will spread, ahead. It's how we'll adapt to a world where seeing is no longer believing, where sensors can be fooled, where invisibility is just another piece of equipment, and whether we're ready for the consequences, military, civilian, and ethical, of making the invisible real. So what do you think? Is adaptive camouflage a net positive for security, or does it create more problems than it solves? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into military technology that's reshaping the future, subscribe, because the next breakthrough might already be here. We just can't see it yet.